Hello, everybody. I'm Pasha Marlowe, and this is the Let Pleasure Be the Measure podcast. I bring you today a friend, a colleague. I hope to someday aspire to be an activist with the power and intention that Tracie Jae brings to her work. So she has inspired me for a very long time now, a couple of years at least. Time is weird, but Tracie Jae is the lead rebel for the Quiet Rebel. Tracie Jae curates authentic, grace-filled conversations centered on difficult subjects. Her current offering is a national, growing, and ongoing conversation on race and culture known as 100 Voices, which is how I first met Tracie. Good to see you, Tracie.
Hey, Pasha.
I have to say, and I don't know if you've heard this before, because the 100 Voices was such a powerful, serious project, I wasn't sure how I could fit into it with my background being fairly new to the scene of difficult conversations and activism. Plus now I have this like supposed playful, humorous side. So I was very nervous to attempt to hold space for difficult conversations. But honestly, since then, because I loved how you said something along the lines of the graceful conversations, just one human to another, like one person at a time, honestly took the load off so much. I haven't stopped since. It just opened me up to not putting so much pressure on myself to know everything or to like stand on big stages. I could just have conversations with one person at a time and try to find understanding. So you brought that to my life, and I think it's definitely changed me. So thank you.
Oh, yay. That makes me so happy. It's like, yeah, all of this is just one human and another human.
Yes.
And it might be one human and several other humans, but it's just human to human. That's it.
Exactly. And every time I have a conversation with any human, I find that we have so much more similar and in common than we do different. And it gives me a sense of hope that wasn't there before, and a sense of belonging that wasn't there before. So how did you create Quiet Rebel? Where did that come from?
So the Quiet Rebel is an umbrella that is intended to hold all things Tracie Jae.
Yeah.
It has been an evolutionary process over about 7 years now. The primary focus has always been conversations in some way. So I've always just wanted to create space where humans could talk to other humans.
Yeah.
But really talking to other humans about the things that matter. But oddly, or maybe not oddly, because life is life, right? This really started with me wanting to help people have better interpersonal or intrapersonal relationships. So the relationship they have with themselves, and getting a chance to ask ourselves harder questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was married twice, divorced twice. And I realized that, I realized somewhere along the lines of my second marriage unraveling that there was a lot of things I didn't know about myself. And so there was no way for me to like actually get somebody else to know how I tick. Because I didn't know those things about myself, right? And so when my husband was saying, I really don't know you. I really don't feel like I know you. And I didn't believe him because I was like, surely you know me because we've been spending all this time together. We are like together in the same space. Like I'm telling you everything I know to tell you. But that's the thing. I was telling him everything I knew to tell him.
That's the key right there. Yes.
Right. So yeah, it's this whole Quiet Rebel journey started without a name, and I was teaching a class called Would I Marry Me?
Ooh, I like it.
And trying to get people to sort of examine what they bring to a table in any relationship.
I think this is so fascinating. It wasn't where I thought we'd go right away, but I'm digging it, because I used to be a marriage and family therapist, and I'm coming at it with this lens of that we're all a system, and that the patterns of interaction between the two of us, and that we have to understand how we play a part in it, and ask ourselves, exactly like you're saying, the hard questions. And until we trust and love ourselves, how can we expect anybody else to trust and love us? And until we understand ourselves, how can we expect anybody else to understand us? So what's an example for you of a hard question you asked yourself to get to a place of deeper awareness, so that you could want to marry yourself and then potentially want to have a partnership?
So one of the things I have really had to struggle with, or really had to like pull apart, was my relationship with time and my relationship with money. And how I really didn't have a good relationship with money because I never really had to. Like, I went from being a child, basically being my parents' child, to being a spouse,
Mhm.
and a very like a dependent spouse, not like a partnership spouse.
Mhm.
In the first marriage, I was totally a dependent spouse. And so I didn't really have a relationship with money that I could explain,
Yes.
because somebody had always done everything for me.
Yes.
And when I got divorced the first time and got remarried, it was in very short order. And so I never actually had a chance to develop a relationship with money independently.
Yes.
So that was a big thing that I really needed to like work out and work through.
Mm-hmm.
And it caused a lot of tension and conflict, because money is a huge situation in relationships. Well, in partnerships of any kind, really, but in a marriage or a long-term romantic situation, money is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a bad habit of sort of downplaying it because I really didn't understand it. And then I have this relationship with time, right? And that's a relationship I did understand. I really still feel like time is very precious, that you only get a certain amount of it, that you can't replicate it, you can't get it back. And once it's gone, it's gone. And so I don't like to waste it.
Mm.
And when I'm in situations where I feel like my time is being wasted, then I am not the nicest person.
Do you have very clear boundaries? Like, do you just walk away quickly?
Well, my boundaries are getting better. That was the other part of that dilemma, right? That I was frustrated and not very nice, but my boundaries were very fluid.
Yeah. Yes, I hear you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also had a problem with people pleasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my boundaries over here are being trampled, but they weren't clear.
Right.
And I was sucking it all in because I didn't want to upset other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
So it took a while for me to unravel those two big things. And there was a lot of other stuff in the course, but like those two big things, time and money, hands down.
Really big. Yeah. And now that you have a clearer relationship with time and money, do you find yourself being drawn to partnership or just spending more time alone?
Alone.
Yeah. And that's what fuels you. Mm-hmm.
I'm not, so one of the things I've discovered, and this is relatively recent discovery, right, is that I used to feel like I needed to be married. I needed to have a partner. And it was because I didn't trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't trust myself to adult on my own. And because I had been someone else's dependent for so long, I felt like I needed that dependency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that I don't feel like I need that, I can approach the world of relationship from a place of desire, as a place of need.
Yes.
And that feels so much better for me.
Yes. And did you find that in those moments alone, without partnership, is where you built the courage and strength to be an activist and start 100 Voices? Was that after your divorce that you were able to come into that courage?
Yes, I hadn't actually put it together in that way in my brain until just this moment when you asked the question. but yeah, absolutely. I think if I had stayed married, and to be clear, the ending of my second marriage was not my decision. It was a decision that was made for me, that I did not agree with. And and now I'm able to see that decision as a gift. I'm really grateful to that spouse for saying, this isn't working, we need to do something else. It for him, it came from a place of he was unhappy, whereas I was not feeling that same unhappiness and was confused about his unhappiness. But in hindsight, I can totally see how I was not living into my full self, and how I was placating in order to present a version of myself that I thought was making him happy. Yes. When it turned out that version of myself was not making him happy at all. And then I didn't know how to unwind it. And if I had stayed married, I probably would still be spiraling, trying to figure out how to unwind it.
And do you have a friendship or relationship now that you've evolved and changed? And I'm curious.
We are friends. I do consider him a friend.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful place to land, where you see these because these hardships and heartaches as a gift, but you're coming at it from such a place of empathy and curiosity and generosity that it's becoming a gift is beautiful. Yes. Yes. And so I love that because I don't know when I talk to you if we're going to have a very serious conversation or playful conversation, because I feel like we could talk about like systemic racism or pie. Like, I don't know. And I love that you like can do this. And I love this paradox, because I think I'm the same, where I hold like trauma and pleasure in the same breath, and the darkness and the light, and the seriousness and the playfulness. But you come at that very intentionally as well, that you find I can't remember how feeding the happy, like that you intentionally do that despite all the very serious things that are happening in your life and the world.
Yeah, that phrase, feed the happy, came sort of by accident over a meal with a friend who is now no longer with us, and I miss her so much. And she was a person who, like, you go to a conference and you just like hone in on a human, and you're like, that's somebody I need to know.
Yeah, right. I love that feeling.
She was one of those people, right? I was just like, I don't know what it is about this woman, but I'm supposed to know her, right?
Did you say that to her? Did you go up to her and say that?
I don't think I used those words, because I don't think I was quite this, I don't know, brave or straightforward at that time when we met.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did, like, introduce myself and tell her I really enjoyed what she offered to the group, and asked her if she would have coffee with me. And so we went to breakfast that first time, and I'm sitting there eating my challah bread French toast, which was amazing. And I was like just on the cusp of this divorce, and like really wanting to turn into a puddle at the table with this lady. And her background was in the Feldenkrais method. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like a body movement thing that helps you.
Okay. Yes, a little bit.
Right. So I had never heard of this before, but she was talking about Feldenkrais, and I was talking about would I marry me, and how those two things might somehow work together. And I was just like trying to turn it to like a puddle at the table. And I was enjoying this French toast in the same breath and the same bite. And I was like, you know what? This freaking bread is making me so happy. And I'm gonna feed that. I'm gonna feed the happy. And she was like, yes, feed the happy. So then first it felt like it was about food, because that was the thing that triggered it for me. But then I was like, no, like seriously, I need to figure out what makes me happy and do that as often as humanly possible. My ex-husband, who I was in that moment grieving, has this expression, what we feed grows and what we starve dies.
Yes.
And that was the thing I wanted to grow, was this amount of happiness that I was experiencing. And so I decided I would feed it. And so that is the mantra that I live by. It has carried me forth from the end of that divorce until this moment sitting here.
Beautiful. And do you hold space for the sadness and the rage and all the other emotions that certainly come up? Do you limit the amount of time you're in that space, or how do you set the boundaries for when you want to honor all the emotions?
I am now in a place where I can just let emotions be what they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to shut them off. I'm not trying to hide from them.
Mm-hmm.
They are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I have felt a lot of them recently.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some extreme grief. There has been some extreme frustration. And also there's a lot of joy. Like my days are very, very happy. So they coexist, all of those things.
Yes. When I first met you, you told me about your bubble meditation, and it stuck with me. I think it's a beautiful image. Can you explain it to people?
Yes, and I was hoping that I had some bubbles like within hand, because I almost always do. I don't see any right now though. But I blow bubbles as a way to help me remember to breathe. And I found that, at least early on when I was trying to learn to meditate, that like standard meditation where you're supposed to still yourself and still your mind and all those, that it didn't work for me. Like my brain is constantly all over the world, and I couldn't get it together. Pasha, I was trying, but it wasn't working. But then I found that when I was blowing bubbles, my breath was intentional. The inhale and the release to get the bubbles out was very intentional. And also it gave me a great visual of just like watching the things that were troubling me blow away.
Yes.
And so it literally became my meditation. Like I just would stop and blow bubbles. And it doesn't take long, like a couple of minutes. You just like get that good rhythm of good breathing and watching things float away from you. And then I could go back to my life.
It's so brilliant and simple. Did you create this? Or
yeah.
It's just because in yoga classes, I'll talk about, let's imagine all of our troubles, our worries are the clouds, and the clouds, drift away, or the water of a stream like carries your troubles downstream. But then I love that it's intentional and physical and visual and playful. I mean, there's this like getting back into childhood aspect of it that's so pleasurable.
And pre-pandemic, I was actually teaching bubble meditation classes, but right. But you can't go around like blowing your breath on people, and like COVID. It's like
that's true. Well, and do you
love that?
do you bubble because it's soap, right? Do you have like soap stains all over your house, like little bubble juice blobs? I don't know.
If I were paying attention to that kind of thing, I probably do, but.
Who cares?
Who cares if there's a bubble stain? I don't know.
I live alone. I don't care if there's bubble stains all over my sheets. I don't care. I love it. I think the first time we talked in person through Zoom, of course, you were feeling some heavy emotions, and you were choosing to make pie, and it was just this beautiful. I just remember, and then just holding space for the pleasure of creating it and then eating it. And then there wasn't because all of my unfortunate conditioning of like, well, don't eat the whole pie in one sitting, like all these voices came out of my head. And then, but I was so, rooting for you to just devour and enjoy this pie, even though I would feel like I had to deprive myself. But yeah, it's so interesting that whenever I see you now, I see you in this image of just a powerful woman holding space for these very difficult and grace-filled conversations while blowing bubbles and eating pie. It's just this beautiful blend, which feels very balanced and and kind to yourself, right?
Yes. I feel like the sun is not being kind to me right now. Like I'm
You're
drifting
back.
into the background, which is not like you know how sometimes you put up a Zoom background and then your
Yes.
sort of vanishes into the
Yes.
this is just the sunshine. It's trying to suck me in. So it's okay. I look how I
It's you look beautiful and you're backlit, it's glowy and angelic. Do you feel because you created the 100 voices and because people, now look to you for advice and wisdom and perspective, do you feel like some days it's just too much, too exhausting, so you have to step away from it? Like how do you balance that, like the needs of society and people to, yeah.
yeah. So I do find, or I have found, that 100 Voices has been a catapult for me into doing work that I really believe I was born to do, which is creating space, holding space for difficult conversations. And this particular conversation around race and culture, which has been a thing my whole life and all the lives before mine. But also like it's very present right now.
Yeah.
And I get to just be one little cog in the wheel of change for it. And so I'm excited about that. So most days I really am excited that I get to do the work I feel like I was born to do.
Cool.
And also there are days where the world is a shitstorm and I'm just like, really? This is what we're doing today? I don't, yeah, no, I'm done with all humans today. I cannot participate in this fuckery and foolishness that y'all got going on. And we're gonna sit this one out. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. And you allow yourself to sit it out. That's beautiful. Yes. Yeah. And that refuels you as an introvert, I assume, having that time to yourself with your bubbles, and just your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you choose this? What were you before? You were the quiet rebel as your work. What was your work prior? Because I assume you chose this vocation quite intentionally.
Yeah. So actually this vocation chose me. I didn't really intentionally choose it. I thought when I did 100 Voices, the first event in Houston, I thought it was going to be maybe the only one. And I thought maybe at best it would be an annual event that I would have in Houston. Like that's as far as my thinking went with it. That was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not intend for that to be the focus or the work of the Quiet Rebel at that time. At that time, I was teaching bubble meditations and I was holding silent retreats and like helping people be in better communications with themselves and consequently better communications with the people around them because they were doing better with themselves.
Yes.
And the questions for 100 Voices were born out of that same space. It's the same energy because all of the questions are focused on somebody's lived experience. And so it's more about sharing who you are than like what the world is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know. I didn't
When
know.
did you find or figure out or accept and embrace the idea that this was going to go nationwide, possibly even international by now? I saw it in its like earlier stages where it's branching out to major cities. Where is it now? Where's 100 Voices taking you?
So where 100 Voices is now is in the side of corporate spaces.
Ah, good.
And it's so exciting that
Yeah.
that I get to go into organizations that are really tentative about starting this kind of conversation with their staff, shareholders, and stakeholders of all kinds, and that we can do it honestly, and that it can also be part of a more comprehensive sort of what I call human-centered equity training, as opposed to diversity and inclusion. That we can start with this conversation, but then see how we can be better humans in all the work we do.
Yes.
So beyond 100 voices, now I'm also offering human-centered equity trainings and in corporate spaces. And so I'm excited about that.
That's incredible. And what is a difficult conversation you think corporations need to be asking themselves right now?
If our words and our actions align, there's a lot of places who, like, a year ago put up the black square on their social media, or who wrote these lovely, eloquent statements about how they are embracing equity in their workplaces, but in the real life, their employees were quitting or not feeling seen, heard, appreciated, loved in their actual workspaces. In my mind, it's sort of similar to how Americans will go to other countries and do all this humanitarian stuff, right? We want to go save the whole planet, right? And those poor starving babies in whatever name country you want to pick on the continent of Africa, right? They are struggling so much, and we need to bring them our Christianity, and we need to bring them our educational systems, and we need to bring them stuff they didn't ask for, right? Because they need it, right? Meanwhile, you got neighbors who need all the same things, but you don't see those neighbors. You don't want to interact with those people who are right next door to you, right in your breath space every day, and continue to see those people as other. And so I feel like corporations do much the same thing, right? They're like, oh no, we are all about equity. We want to absolutely represent diversity in all of our business doings, and we're going to put one Black face and one Latina face and one Asian face in every poster we put out.
The end.
The end. Right? But then inside the spaces where people need to get the work done, you aren't hearing from people who have differing opinions or different life experiences. You aren't celebrating those people. You aren't embracing who they are as full humans. We want people to conform to who we are, as opposed to accepting them for who they are. So like earlier you mentioned, and I hear this a lot, that inside these conversations we get to hear how people are similar. Right? Which is great. But also we get to hear how people are different. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being different. We all of us are different. And I think it is our fear of difference that keeps us in these little boxes, right? We want to find what's the same. I need you to be like me so I can like you. But how come I can't just like you because you're you?
Right. Why are we seeking the similarities for comfort?
Right. And when I hear people say that, when I heard you say it, it didn't make me cringe, because I know it's a thing that we do, right? We really want to know how is this person like me, and where can I find common ground?
I'm so glad you're challenging me and others on it in such a graceful, compassionate way, because this is why I love you, Tracie, because I'm not feeling defensive. I'm just open. I'm open to learning. So how, because I think that's what I think, but that's not what I said. And maybe it's not what I think because I don't know what I think because I haven't figured it out yet and all this. So so what's a better way to language that?
I just think we just need to figure out how to coexist peacefully with other humans. Regardless of how they come to us. Right. I grew up in a house with a sister. Right. She's my only sibling. There's 4 years between us, roughly 4 years. And she and I are very different. Very, very different. We grew up in the same house. We have the same parents. Our parents are still married 52 years. They live in the same house where we grew up.
That's amazing.
Right?
Magical,
right? Prior to the Cosby scandal, I would have been happy with the reference that we were the Cosby family. Like, that is that is the picture that people painted of us growing up, right? Middle class, working family. This is where I came from, right? I don't love my sister any less because we are very, very different.
Yes. Yes.
We operate in the world in very different ways. And sure, we came from the same family, so there are some similarities, and I could always hone in on those similarities, and I could always point them out and say,
yeah,
we laugh the same, or we have similar senses of humor, or whatever. But at the end of the day, like if you didn't know we were sisters, you might not know we were related because we're very, very different.
Which is also what makes it interesting as we branch out to this, in friendships, relationships, corporations, communities. Of course, that's what makes it far more exciting, interesting, vibrant. So yes, it's interesting because my mindset was certainly find the commonalities of humanity so that we could have a conversation, so that I wasn't coming at it with rage, but to come at conversations with the awareness and the welcoming of our differences. And it's a shift in mentality, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a programming and conditioning that we have had since ever, right? It's a human thing to want to belong, right? And I have this relationship with that word as well, right? As a Black person in America, the idea of belonging to someone else really sits in my DNA in a way that I don't appreciate, right? Because we actually did belong to people.
Yes, thank you for explaining that. Thank you. Yeah,
literally property, right?
Yes.
And so, and the same with being a woman in a Western dominated culture, right? Who has been enculturated with patriarchy, right? Like that up until like 1972, a woman couldn't even get a mortgage or bank account without a male signature.
Right.
And so the idea of belonging in that sense as a woman, like I belong to this man, right? Or I belong to my spouse, gender not be damned, right? Like I belong to this other human. I don't want to belong to anyone or really to anything, but I rather belong with, right? So the belonging is still like attached to me, like I belong where I am, right? And do I belong with this organization? Do I belong with this other human? Absolutely. Can we coexist peacefully in the same space? Absolutely. But I don't belong to you. I don't belong.
Yes. So belonging with rather than belonging to, because I've got Brene Brown stuck in my head because I just listen to her all the time. She's like, don't aim for fitting in for belonging, or aim for belonging. And do you have another word that you use for yourself or for corporations outside of belonging, or do you focus on the belonging with?
No, I think belonging with, like, and I love Brene Brown, right? And she's a Houstonian, and I think we have very similar personalities, even though I don't know if she would know that. She actually used to belong to the church that I worked at for a really long time. And so I remember when she was teaching classes for Sunday school. So like I have the 2 degrees of separation from Brene Brown in any direction. Yeah. Right. And I love her and I love her work. And I totally, like, she studied shame and belonging for 20 years. Like, I'm not going to argue with her research. Right. And also, in her own words, lived experience trumps research. And so for me, for my lived experience, I feel like it is better to belong with than to belong to.
And as soon as I love that, as soon as we orientate ourselves towards an idea, we see it everywhere. Because even when you said Brene Brown belonged to the specific church, I'm thinking, of course we don't want to belong to a church, we want to belong with a church. And so now somebody the other day said, the doctor who delivered my baby, and we were shifting this to the doctor didn't deliver your baby, you delivered your baby. And so now I will never hear that the same. So the same with this belonging to and with, I will never hear it the same, and I'll try to catch it in my own thoughts as well. And it's simple, and it's and it's like, as much as my brain can handle right now, but it's big. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I appreciate it, because it's that kind of shift that makes a world of change and difference. So so thank you. I'm like absorbing. Is there anything more that you want to say about that, belonging with and belonging to?
Well, I will add that it's sometimes change is as simple as one word.
Yes, that's what it's feeling like right now.
Right. I have a friend who anytime she says like, I have to go to work, she changes it immediately to I get to go to work.
Yes.
Right? Because that one word is a big shift.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so in my work with the Quiet Rebel, I say that I do incremental and organic shifts. Yes. Right. And so for me, that one shift from belonging to belonging with is an incremental and organic shift. It's just one word that reshapes the way you see an entire system of things.
Absolutely. I have goosebumps, not that it matters what I'm going through right now, but I know that don't you love those moments where you feel a shift and you know it's going to change your cellular dynamic? Like it's gonna change how I think and speak. So thank you. And when it's kind of circling back, or maybe even wrapping up, I'm not sure, but when you spoke about corporations saying something but not doing it, not following through, or like a year ago posting the black square and then now not being as inclusive as they would claim, I was thinking back to our very first part of the conversation with how we do this in our marriages and how we need to do this for ourselves. Are we holding ourselves accountable to our words? Are we integrous? Do we can we trust ourselves in our word? And then can we ask for that trust in a relationship? And then can we ask for that trust as a business partner and as a corporation? And I think, to come back to your original statement, like it all begins with us. And if that means at first I say I'm going to, very small scale, weed my garden, and then I weed my garden and I hold myself accountable to that starts to build my own self-worth and trust inside of myself, which allows me the strength and courage to then have perhaps a difficult conversation that I was not having with my spouse or my child. Right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. The most difficult conversations we will ever have are the ones we have with ourselves.
Yes.
Because we are our own worst critics. We hold ourselves to a different standard than we hold the rest of the world. And if we can look ourselves in the face and we can be honest with the person we see, then it's a lot easier for us to have better, more fruitful, more honest conversations with other people. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not because I'm trying to get you to do something that I'm not willing to do. Right? Is another thing that happens in management. Right? Yeah. We have all these big bosses want to go around tell people what to do, but they won't get their hands dirty. Right? I'm going to get my hands dirty because I'm going to do the work on Tracie first.
Yes.
Right. And then after I've done the work on Tracie and I see that it's successful, then I will invite somebody else to come and do this work with me.
Yes. Yeah. And it is hard and dirty and and exhausting, which is why we also need to come back, before we wrap it up, to bubbles and pie and breath and pleasure. Because if you only have the hard conversations with yourself, and if you're only, in that kind of heavy space within your brain, you are going to be tired and you're going to want to quit. So continuously refueling ourselves out of self-love and worth to play, to pleasure, to leisure, to rest. What else? Yep. To eat, to bubble.
To do whatever feeds your happy.
Yeah,
right?
Feed your happy. Yeah.
Because what feeds my happy is not necessarily what feeds yours.
Nope.
Right? Mm-hmm. And if you and I are together and we can't agree on the thing that feeds our happy, then I get to say, that's okay, Pasha. Do you?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? What's going to make you happy in this moment? And as long as what's making you happy in this moment does not cause me harm.
Yes.
Then I'm happy for your happiness.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to try the bubbles, but I might not like the bubbles. I think it's brilliant. I like having like hard conversations. My husband's like, why is this fun for you? Why is it you're crying? You're snotting. Like, why is this fun for you? I'm just like, I feel alive when I'm having a hard conversation. So it is fun. It does bring me pleasure. I shouldn't do it as much as I do it because I do perhaps too much because I need to also step into the pleasure and the rest because I can't meditate any longer because my head is on fire all the time.
Well, okay. So Pasha, in my work and on my wall behind me, there's this acronym for love, and it is how I guide conversations.
Okay.
And having a hard conversation does not have to also have snot and crying. We can I think it's I can't think of her name right now. Glennon Doyle.
Okay.
We can do hard things.
We can do hard things.
We can do hard things, right? And having a difficult conversation is a hard thing, but it does not have to be painful in this way that we make them painful, right? So love is an acronym. And I always say we start conversations with love. Love first always. It's how I sign my emails. It's how I like present things to the world. L is listen with your heart. O is observe your own biases. V is venture into unfamiliar territory. And E is expect the best. And so
that's the one, that E. The E is what I've been thinking of in my head this week as coming at things with generosity and a little more hope. Because I'm expecting it to be difficult. I'm expecting it to be a battle. I'm expecting that our differences will make it harder and tears and snot and all that. So expecting the best. This is what I need to work on. Thank you. I forgot. I missed the E.
Expect the best. And again, back to differences, right? Like the differences don't have to scare us.
Yes.
Right. Yes. The differences don't have to make us defensive. The differences are just facts. Like people, every person you meet in your life is going to be different from you.
Yes.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Now, surely there will be some things that are similar, but that doesn't have to be the place where you connect.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yes.
Oh, Tracie Jae, you came to us today with an authentic, graceful conversation. You opened my eyes. I'm hoping that in my messy naivete and sloppy languaging, I was reaching out to somebody out there who maybe felt the same and is opening their eyes in a similar way. Yes, thank you. Thank you for always being so gracious and frankly patient with our process. So yeah.
I have raised 3 daughters to adulthood. So
you did 3 teenage girls. Nothing.
Yeah. So patience comes with the conditioning.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Tracie Jae. How can people reach you, find you, follow you, continue the conversation with you?
Yeah. So I am, as they say, Googleable. As long as you spell my name correctly, Tracie with an IE, last name Jae. And so if you search for me by my name, you will find me.
Yes.
So my website is quietrebellife.com. I'm on Instagram at quietrebel.life. I'm also on Twitter.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I find you're easy to actually. My computer knows you so well. As soon as I make a T, you come up. So that's how important you are in my world. Yeah, yes, always easy to find you and a pleasure to follow you. And I do love that I never know if I'm going to get the playful or the serious, and they both open my heart and mind every time.
They coexist. So
they
you
coexist.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the theme of this podcast, that it can coexist, and that paradox is life. And so thank you, Tracie Jae.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you learn something, unlearn something. I hope you share this podcast. Please, if you could take a moment to subscribe and like it and comment or review it, that would be amazing as well. If you want to continue the conversation with me, in the links, along with all of Tracie's links, I will post a free Calendly link, or a liberation call, I call it, which is just a free call with me to let's talk. I love talking to the listeners. And website is Pasha Marlowe, but you can just as easily find me by my name, Pasha Marlowe, on Facebook, Pasha Marlowe on Instagram. Easy. So yeah, Tracie, I look forward to hearing from you all and hearing your thoughts on this grace-filled, often messy.
Oh, can I tell you something funny before we actually start?
Yeah.
So I was sharing your book, right?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
On my social media. And people thought I was making an announcement. Like, folks thought I was coming out.
That's so too.
And I was not. I was not making an announcement. I was not coming out.
Tracie's not a lesbian.
I'm not a lesbian. I love women, and I think women are beautiful and lovely and wonderful. And also, I really like men. So
you just want to make sure that's out there.
Just want to make sure that that's clear, in case there's some, man out there that's looking for somebody who doesn't actually want to be partnered. Like,
in case all my listeners are not bisexual women and lesbians, if there is a man out there listening, Tracie wants you to know she is not a lesbian.
Right. I'm not. Nothing at all. No problems with lesbianism.
No.
But however, I was not making that announcement.
But you're not looking for a man. You just are wanting to open yourself up to everybody knowing. Got it.
That's all.
I love it. And when you posted my book, thank you for sharing my book. The book is called My Next Husband Will Be a Lesbian, and I'm married to a man. So that's a whole nother story. But yes, I thought you were coming out as well. And you would just make such a fantastic lesbian, just to let you know.
Listen, love is love is love is love is love.
Who wouldn't want to partner with you? I would say that, you would make a fantastic partner to anybody, and you don't need to, because you're so good with yourself.
Great partnerships with women. I just don't want to have sex with them. That's all.
I am glad we cleared that up. All right. Thank you, Tracie. Enjoy your day, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Keep eating happy.